like to call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Everyone can see the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the 5 p.m. meeting agenda?
So moved. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Presentation of the 25-26 school calendar. Oh,
You got them.
I got them backwards?
Yeah.
I do have them backwards. I apologize.
All right.
Well, let me do that, or I didn't carry the budget. All right, we're good. They're about the same thing. So instead of what I just said, we'll go with the presentation of the budget.
Okay, when we're presenting the budget here, our ultimate goal is to come up with a budget that's not only effective in the short term, but it's also going to align with our long-term goals. If in your little packet here, the ones with the letterhead, if you pull those off, and the ones behind it will be the first follow. The handout number 1. What that shows is that we are presenting this using 2% allowable growth. The legislature has yet to legally set that, so we're going with a conservative approach on that one. On that first handout, you can see it's 2%. The second thing there, we are requesting a $700,000 cash reserve levy. The cash reserve levy is what we use to finance our special ed deficit. We have some required asbestos removal costs, and we are also using it to finance that. The combination of those two things are what we're using the cash reserve levy to finance. We could have levied up to $807,000, but we chose to keep it as low as we possibly could. The third bullet on there is our PEPL levy is at $1. That's what it's been, at least since I've been here. We've never raised that. We've kept it at $1. And we do have the ability to go to $1.67 on that. But again, we're trying to keep things as low as possible. The fourth bullet on there, our management levy, we set that at $775,000. And this is set at that amount essentially because of the cash flow needs of this specific fund. All our bills for the management fund come due right at the first of our fiscal year, so we have to have the cash flow there. If you turn the page on that, and you'll see that our total levy rate is 13, just short of $13.97. That consists of a general fund rate of $9.47. The cash reserve makes up about just a smidge short of $1.04 in that amount. The management fund rate is $1.15. The PEPL is $1. The debt service is the $2.33. The $2.33 is what we had told our patrons when we ran the bond issue. That's what we were going to set it at. If you go to handout number 2, which is the next page, 3 things I'd point out on that. The debt service levy will create $1,620,720 of revenues. That will service all of our general obligation payments with the exception of about $8,000. We chose to keep the levy at $233, and then we're going to the other $8,000 we're going to pay with our some of our statewide penny revenues. And then on the bottom of that sheet, you can see our revenue bond payments will be serviced strictly with our statewide penny receipts. The next page, which is hand-marked handout number 3, this is an illustration of where we think the revenues and expenditures will fall for the current 25 year. do is just go through each fund and kind of highlight things. And we'll start, actually, we will go specifically from left to right. These figures can vary depending on from the certified budget that we filed last year, as well as the line item budget we do in the fall that we developed early in the fall. Variances can come from a variety of things. They can be timing difference, construction payment, timing difference. Could be increased costs on discretionary items. And it actually, on the revenue side, it could be additional revenues received. This is also the information that we use to determine if a budget amendment is needed for the current year. And I tell you right now, and I think I told you earlier this year, we did have some construction timing differences. When we prepare this budget, we're essentially doing a year and a half when it comes to fruition. And you can estimate when the construction payments are going to be made, but they don't always fall that way. It's a little faster, a little slower. So we're more than likely going to have to amend our budget to show some of this time. If you go to the sheet here, the general fund does show a decrease in fund balance. Much of that was actually planned, and it's got to do with the asbestos removal costs. But the district will recoup that spending authority during fiscal year 26, and then we'll also do some of it during fiscal year 27. If you go to the activity fund, there was very little change in the activity fund balance. The management fund did increase their fund balance. Couple real quick reasons there. One, we had, when we budgeted, we had a few less individuals that took the early retirement incentive than what we had budgeted for, and our property and casualty insurance was just a little bit less than what they originally told it was going to be. If you go to the sales tax fund, that did decrease as we did spend some of our revenue bond proceeds on construction payments, and we also used some of those funds for what they call owner-provided items in the construction projects. Specifically, one of the largest ones would have been the temporary classrooms. The district PEPL fund balance did increase. That was anticipated. What we had done is we had set aside some funds in PEPL, so when we do the middle school secure vestibule project, those funds will be there, so those were set aside for that. The other capital projects fund, which is the construction fund, it decreased because obviously we're spending funds on the construction project. You do see there's a balance in that at the end of this fiscal year, and that's because the project won't be completed until sometime here this fall. The debt service fund does show an increase, and that's doing to set aside for the payments that have to be made right after the fiscal year. And then finally on that page, the nutrition fund does show a decrease in the fund balance, and some of that's because we are upgrading equipment. We will go on to the handout number 4, which is the revenues and expenditures that we anticipate for the coming year. Again, I'll work essentially from left to right on that. How we determine the revenues and the expenditures is essentially by the aided levy process that we do through the Department of Management. On the expenditure side, some of it's from past history, some of it's things that you anticipate that could change from year to year, but a lot of it's done from history of what has happened in the past. The general fund does show a decrease, but typically we use a fairly conservative approach when we're budgeting, at least in the general fund. We tend to estimate expenditures, at least what they're going to be, and then on the revenue side, we try to be conservative, but typically the results are better than what we predict in the general fund. There's very little change in the activity fund, the management fund, the debt service, and the nutrition funds. We essentially budget those so they will just hold their own. The save fund does show an increase, and part of that is we have to build up our reserves in that fund because we've spent those down within the construction project. And then the PEPAL fund, you will see there is a decrease in that, and what's happening there is the funds that we set aside for the middle school vestibule project, those will be expended next year. And then finally, the other one on that is if you see the other capital projects fund, which is a construction fund, that should be zero because the construction project should be finished. The last handout I have here is the unspent authority, and you can really flip to the second page on that. We do anticipate our spending authority will be around $6.8 million after fiscal year 25, and then it's going to rise slightly to about $7 million in FY26. When we several years ago, when we set our targets that we wanted to be at, we wanted to be on or close to the 6 to 7 million range that this falls within it. You know, essentially with spending authority, in a perfect world, if it's at a level every year, it means you're taking in what you're spending in the general fund. And then finally, a couple other comments. We do anticipate some drop in enrollment over the next 5 years, but nothing we don't think that we can manage. Obviously, our funding is determined by our enrollment, so that's something we really have to keep a close eye on. Our goal is not to have large increases in the special ed deficit. Something you have to understand some things in that arena are out of our hands. There are situations where we have a high needs individual that moves into our district. We do have to provide for them. The district does plan to increase our operational sharing with other districts in the coming years, and that does provide another source of funding. Our income tax surtax rate is 7%. We have talked about that there would be a possibility that we could raise that a little bit, and it would provide a little bit of property tax relief. That's something obviously we can't do for this coming year, but it's something we can talk about going forward. A couple other comments. The district is going to be filing with the SBRC this fall, obviously to get the authority back for the asbestos removal. To stay ahead of the reduced funding due to enrollment fund increases, we are proactively taking measures to reduce our overall expenses. Despite, your salaries do go up. A couple of ways the administration has been doing this is where it's feasible, we're absorbing positions, we're trying to reduce bus routes, we're trying to do stuff that's proactive, and trying to keep it as far from the classroom as possible. And ultimately, our goal is to keep our spending authority strong, keep our solvency ratio at an acceptable level, and keep our overall tax levy at an acceptable level. And one other thing, you do have to keep in mind that nearly all of our rates are formula driven by the A&W filings. Really, the only two that we can manipulate a lot to control the overall levy, or the management levy, the cash reserve levy, and essentially we're asking on those, we're asking what we need to keep our cash flows solid. That's all I have.
Any questions? Yes.
This is something we don't discuss now anyway, but we discuss it during, that be on the board agenda.
Yes.
A hearing is just basically a presentation.
Yeah, just the presentation. and then-
Anything about the presentation?
And you have
So
to
we'll talk
understand, we will,
about
there's,
what we think.
by law, we're required to
During the
have
decision?
two hearings on the budget this year. We'll have another one with the next board meeting.
So will the board will have an opportunity to discuss some of this stuff. You have to remind us again, because this is high level stuff. Right.
Well, he wrote, pretty much all of that he said, Jim, are right here in his notes
But
too.
still,
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
you're talking chemistry to kindergartners.
Correct.
These are a lot of complicated numbers. And
Thanks for moving me up to kindergarten.
Yeah,
I
yes,
would
we'll
think
have,
sometime, this, we should have expect we have a discussion in a board meeting.
and this is the first hearing of two, so we've got
Okay.
time. Yep.
Maybe it should be a finance committee thing.
The finance committee has gone over
Finance
this.
committee
Yeah,
has gone over
has
this.
gone over it, so, yeah, we can do that.
Next, we will do comments from the public. The board cannot comment on any comments that come from the public because it's not part of our agenda, and we hold everyone to a maximum of 3 minutes. Anyone here would like to comment on the budget?
I do have a question. I noticed that every school district I'm in, they all raised our proposed tax rate hike all the same. Does the state do that, or do you call from one school to the other?
We do
How
not.
did-
No, we don't.
We do not. We are totally independent on that.
Because you're all raising it the exact same rate in 3 schools that I pay tax in, Tri-Center, Woodbine, and
Excuse me, sir, could you tell us your name so we can have it for the record?
Robert Smets.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd be nice if whoever wants to speak could tell us the name, and then we can click on that. Thank you, sir.
Maybe I'm scared to tell you my name.
No, you should be, you're welcome to talk, so.
No, read.
And then the other thing, you said that the sales tax, you were thinking about alleviating some of the property tax somehow. You mentioned that in your,
It's the income surtax.
through a surtax. I don't hear so well, so I had to guess a little bit. The only thing I can see is, it seems like we just keep our budget, our tax rate just keeps going up on us. And I don't know if it's all building, or, because I know like the school taxes are all pretty well the same from one school district to the other. I understand that. But I just don't understand why everybody proposed tax rate was the same.
I don't talk to anybody before I'm doing it. I don't talk to anybody when I'm doing it, so I honest to God, I can tell you why that happens.
Well, I was kind of curious on that. And my only other comment is going to be, do your best to keep this thing down, because we keep getting hit on the property side. And like last year, my taxes went up 10% in Shelby County, which you guys may not think is a lot, but to me it's a lot. And so my renters and that, I gotta go out and start asking them for more money because my tax rate keeps going up. That's the only comment I got to make.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Neil Ferguson is my name. Question on the asbestos abatement. Is there an estimated figure on that? How much is that going to cost?
Yeah, we're not really supposed to comment during meetings, Neil. I'm glad if you would give me a call, I will gladly tell you. We're really not supposed to comment. Sorry. But I'm glad-
Can you give me a range?
It's still a comment.
Yeah.
That's anything the board talks about has to be on our agenda. If we go outside that agenda, we're violating.
I don't know what to comment.
That's allowing you to talk, not us.
Jeff Branch there. I heard that enrollment will be down, so, succeeding years, right? So, I guess Harlan isn't growing, but our taxes keep growing. And I didn't hear any cost effectiveness programs, any cost reductions, or incentive reductions. I didn't hear anything about that, about, things about we're looking at our top 20 spends and we're going to reduce here and we're going to reduce there. I didn't hear anything of that in the budget for this next year. So if you're going to raise taxes, I guess when you're not growing, then I would certainly think you would certainly look very hard at your expenses and try to do a good job of not raising those. Having worked in both the non-profit and the profit sector, we are required to come up with a reduction amount to offset wages, inflation, etc. I don't understand whether the school district would do the same.
I will comment on that because it is part of my presentation. Part of my presentation, we have absorbed at least 4, possibly 5 positions this year. We also are probably going to have less bus routes.
Eliminating 4 teaching positions.
We are
I can
being
speak to the
proactive.
bus thing. Jared's just really cutting it to where it's most efficient and least expensive. And not just because he's my boss.
And then the last comment, I don't know how many years you set a special ed budget and not made it. Because that's not the first time I've heard that. And, you set the budgets, so we expect you to make it. So when you don't, and I understand sometimes weird things happen in budgets, I get that. But this is not the first time. So I would, whatever budget you set, would you please make it?
I think you can repeat the presentation.
I can repeat, we actually are very, very proactive on our special ed. And I would not normally comment, but it is my presentation.
I heard what you said.
Okay, yeah.
But my point, then
Our
set it so you make it. That's all
At
I'm
one
saying.
time, our special ed deficit was in excess of $750,000. We have reduced that down to, it's somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000. That in a district our size is very low. It's very, very low. What you also have to understand, when you can set a special ed budget, you get a 2 high needs kids that move into town, you got to pay for it. You don't have a choice. You don't. It's not you. Well, I got a budget. I can't pay for that. You have to serve those children.
I understand that. My point is that we should be able to forecast. I mean, if that happens every year, then I would forecast raising the budget to cover it. I mean, all we're asking is if you set a budget, you should try to make it. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dwayne Rank, I was just like to say that something about what Bob said there, that my son farms and he pays cash rent. He's operating in the rail. You guys want to raise the taxes. I just don't understand it.
Thank you for your comment. Thanks. Anyone else have comments?
All right. Aren't you glad they put that, we could come to the meeting here?
Yes, Yes.
I had to throw that in there.
I wish you're right.
What?
I wish we
It's in your
had
tax
more
force.
leeway, but thank you, thanks.
Robert, will you spell your last name for me? I'm so sorry. I don't know. Is it SCHMITZ?
SCHMITC.
Okay, and I got Neil. And then Jeff?
That Branstetter, Branstetter.
Is mine was hard.
And then Ryan?
R-E-I-N-I-G.
Thank you.
Can
Appreciate
I
it.
tell Neil I will respond to his question? I will get a hold of you tomorrow.
Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Let me,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Now we'll go to my page 2. Okay, so now I will call the 5:15 meeting to order. We have a quorum. Everyone's seen the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, presentation of the 25-26 school calendar.
Oh, for June.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks for doing the work you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I sent it, I sent it, so I guess just based on what you saw, do you have any questions or do you have any concerns? We did take
These
teacher
laws you
input.
catch, because I know you're good at catching.
No, yeah,
Dropped me with
she did an
Halloween 3
email.
years ago.
The Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My only question is, can we clarify that teachers and staff, along with administration, are who vote on their vacations and
Yes.
the calendar? Can we say something like that? Because there's all this like, how do teachers not get enough vacation? How do they keep, so can we say it's actually the teachers, the staff, and the admin that set the calendar
Yes.
and vote on it?
Well, they didn't vote on the whole calendar, but we did give them, like, do you want to have,
Well, the vacation
Yeah, 2
isn't
weeks
set
sick.
by the vacation.
Well, but I mean, they kind of choose.
We
do
asked
they
their
wanna come
input.
here?
Oh,
Yeah,
you
yes,
give
we
them what?
You mean
definitely
their
asked their
breaks?
input.
Yes.
The breaks, okay.
Yes.
This is
I'm-
a public hearing, did we talk about this?
Yeah, because it's,
She's presenting it still.
yeah, it's her, I think.
Oh, I thought we did.
This is not public hearing, this is a regular board meeting.
No,
No, this is
now
a
we're on
public
the
hearing.
calendar public
Oh,
hearing.
It's a calendar.
Let's go to the public hearing.
Yeah.
Didn't say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's
That's
right.
why.
But it is on our agenda.
Well,
Well, we can discuss it on the, do you want me, okay, I'll just
Let's
read
go to
it.
the agenda.
they're
Okay.
supposed to be on the
So
agenda.
Because of what he said, I agree.
I'm just trying not to ask you dumb questions.
Okay, nobody's here to speak about the calendar,
All right.
so I will answer that when we get to that point.
Yeah.
But basically, do you want me to
I'm
present?
following Jim on this.
The good thing about, the different thing about this calendar is, we, again, are not able to start until August 23rd per Iowa code. There is still some legislation in the works that might let us do that like a week after the state fair. So it didn't give it, it at least lets us back it up a week. So
A week after the state fair starts.
the state fair ends.
Like,
Where
you
are we
can start on the
at?
23rd, August 23rd.
Yeah.
The
Right now.
legislation
And then I'll
yeah.
ask some questions.
Did I say it
I
wrong?
was trying to.
I think they're
I thought
going
you
to
said
take
they're-
it back to state fair a little.
Piggy,
Right.
yes.
Get me closer, we're a
Yes.
week after now. I think once again,
Well,
we're
it's
discussing.
August,
when we vote.
it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't say a specific date. August 23rd is hard sometimes because it lands on a weekend and you can't go before that. So this gives you a little bit more leeway. The legislation that's currently in the works but not voted on yet. So this also gives us a few more, a little bit more wiggle room for snow days, because we all know that we had to add some. So this would give us some play in hours, because we go by hours. In a district, you can go by hours, you can go by days, 180 days or 1,080 hours. We've chosen to go by hours. So it's very similar to this year's calendar. We did ask the teachers if they wanted, when they had conferences in November, if they wanted that Friday after that week to be a comp day for their extra hours, or if they wanted that Wednesday before Thanksgiving break. And it's always close. I mean, it was like a 55-45 vote, but we took the 45 vote, which was before Christmas, or before Thanksgiving, excuse me. We have also gotten feedback that they like the 2-week Christmas break. I'm sorry, 55. Talking too much.
You're okay.
Yes, we took the 55, but I guess my point is it's close.
It's
So
close.
it's about half and half that want it one way and the other. We have gotten lots of feedback that people like the 2-week Christmas break, which is something that we haven't always had, so we did keep that in here. We've asked them also to be on calendar committees before, and we get very few volunteers, but I mean, we appreciate their input. We've also had a student who asked about the calendar and even making up the time, like, is there ways to make up the 3 days that we still have to come back after Memorial Day? And it's difficult to do that right now, but we've asked that the student, if she wants to be on our committee next year, because she'll be a senior next year, so it won't affect her, but she can see and understand the process.
So we have no comments from the public, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. So we can't discuss this at all?
We will on the.
We'll
it's
make it
later
a
on the
meeting
agenda.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That was my fault at first.
That's all.
Did you second?
Second, yes, I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I've got to pull my inner Jim. Let's go. All right. Now, we're going to call the 5:20 board meeting to order. We still have a quorum. And public forum, if anyone has to speak. And everyone seen the agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
We'll move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And we are to discussion items, superintendent report.
Are you discussing the DCAP report? Okay. Do you want to? Yeah.
Everyone, oh, you don't have it?
Maybe she did send it. Did she send it to me?
I have everything sent it to me. I can start.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we, every year, have to do our district career action plan, the DCAP. And the district career action plan is really related to our career and technical education classes, CTE classes. So, and part of it is we're also required to present our findings to the board. So that's what we're doing here. Part of our team, go to the next slide. So our DCAP team, and myself, our counselors, you can see our teachers, our CTE teachers. And we also have to have general education teachers. So math, English, and then Kylie Cum has been a large part, largely involved in writing and working on the DCAP with us as well. So that is our team. What we need to do as we go through the DCAP process, and we have been working on this through the year, I think it's like a 55-pager at this point, because we're just really making a goal this year to get it really done well and extensively. So review our DCAP from last year, look at goals, look at some data, and then begin to work on implement changes and just review and refresh. So Oh, and at the bottom, so we do a DCAP, students also have to do an ICAP, individual career action plan, so a state requirement as well. So some of the data that we look at is the post-secondary readiness reports. And what this is you can see post-secondary intent. That would be this darker blue line through the years, and you can see the trend lines. Or if they are enrolled in a post-secondary 4-year, 2-year trade school, something at 1 year out of high school, 2 years out of high school, we're just tracking this way how, what our students are doing as they're either graduating high school or leaving high school. So you can see the trend, this is 2012, and here's COVID, so here's 2020, where not a lot of data was taken, or that's my assumption there. But we are still working to even get back to the same trend line that we were at before that time. So in just looking at that, we've made gains and improvement, but you can see that we see a need to help students define their post-secondary career plans as they graduate high school. So that was some data. And then the next one, again, here is our graduates by type, their post-secondary intent by type. So the orange is a 4-year public college, yellow is 4-year private college, green is 2-year private college. I bet that's this color. Then this is, sorry, I touched it. This is community college, this green at the bottom. So you can see just over time, just like that last graph we looked at, our students having a post-secondary intent has decreased over time.
So would you say that portrait of a graduate has failed? And the other one that you came up with, was it last year? I forget what it's called. Are they not working, or why is that?
We still suffering.
I think part of it is still working back, again, trying to get back from COVID, you know, a lot of it is too. The portrait of the graduate in Cyclone Alley, we do have those working to get those hand in hand.
But this is really a national trend, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I mean, it's hard for me to read in the graph, I don't think it did real justice to it, but would they go from 80 to 70% since somewhere there? Yeah.
That one, Jim?
This one?
Readiness, yeah, readiness.
86 to
reports.
75.
Is that 80 over there in the far left?
86.
This
2012?
2012 is 86%.
86%.
So 86% of our graduates had post-secondary plans.
Yeah, yeah. You know, this is quite a phenomenon.
And what was it, 70? I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
And then last year, we only have last year because this is a 1 year out and this is 2 years out. Last year, 75%.
And sorry, for clarity, you said that does include trade schools?
Yep.
Military?
Yes, I believe so.
So anything outside of not working or just entering the workforce?
Yes.
Basically?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, you know, this is a national trend, and I'm surprised that as smart as we are, somebody doesn't do a SWOT on it, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. You know, what is causing it? What can we do? You know, it's just you know, something that should be understood. And if people are getting dumber, or if people are coming in for some reason, or, you know, we ought to be able to admit it and think about, you know, where our opportunities can land, where we can improve. And maybe it's not all bad that maybe more kids want to work rather than go to secondary education. I don't know all those factors, but it all should be, sometime the school board should be.
All of those factors are influencing one way or another.
What's that?
All of those are influencing
Yeah,
one way or another. And we should. And I assume that's the purpose of what they're
That's
doing.
part of,
figuring
that's
out
what
why.
the DCAP is. So District Career Action Plan, that is what we assess. So we look at that data And then if we do determine, okay, what are some next steps we want to take to either, the creation of Cyclone Alley is to help our students and create pathways, career pathways for them, so that when they graduate from high school, they're finishing with their diploma and an additional certification, year of college, what have you, to help them determine what their career pathway could be or find an interest so that they're moving forward.
So the 25, get back that 75%, and then the 25%, those are just people that have said they're not gonna go take any more education, or they're just going into the workforce,
We're undecided.
or undecided.
Mhm.
So workforce or undecided.
Yeah, so, go back to that graph. So this would be, this is undecided, so 25% of our students were undecided on what they were doing, what their intent was. But then 1 year out, so if they enroll within a year post high school, and then if they stay, the plus, this gray, is if they stayed with it 2 years post. So you can see, like, I don't know, if it's here, 81% finished, 63% persistent.
But my question still remains, like, in 2021, I think was Portrait of a Graduate rolled out, right? And then we had the Cyclone Alley. So how many years do you give those initiatives before they are either helping or not helping?
Well, I think Portrait of a Graduate was just a kickstart, basically, to help us get to understand what we want high picture, and then the Cyclone Alley has done lots of action steps in between that. I don't know if that's the right way. I mean, they do mesh, and I think Casey's working on that. We're working on some things, like we don't have enough probably in the middle school, so that needs to shift down to the middle school. So I think the Cyclone Alley and having the opportunity to work with Iowa Western and other pieces. I mean, we don't have the advantage in a rural setting as much as a bigger city school might have, but we also, when you track kids, we have a pretty good track record of our kids that do go to 4-year or 2-year schools of graduating, whereas the national average is about 20%. So
What is
20%.
What
The
is-
national average of finishing a 4-year school is 20%. So
So you think that makes sense? 40?
It's that low.
it's very low.
About a third of some college.
And a lot of, I mean, even if you ask Iowa Western what you think would be higher, it's pretty low as well too. So,
I'm just curious, we give them more that they have to complete to graduate, but it seems like the numbers appear to have dropped in that time that we thought
It's
that
hard
that
to
would be
figure
better.
out if.
but we didn't have the
it's that or if
certificate
it's
programs, we
still-
didn't have it aligned. We didn't have it as well aligned, if that makes sense. We've added IJAG, we've added some things. Yeah.
And the schooling during COVID is a major factor in all this. In my opinion, I mean, I've been wrong about a lot of things,
Oh,
but ask my wife.
I'm just curious how long,
Yeah.
how long before it's considered a pass or we have to do something else. Because clearly we've seen a decline already from 22 to 23, and we've already implemented 2 initiatives in that time frame. So does it take 5 years? I don't know, does it take 10 years? Because what happens in 10 years if we keep losing 5% every year? Just out of curiosity.
Casey, how does it impact when someone basically graduates with their associate's degree and then doesn't go on? Would that be part of the?
I don't know. I don't know how that would work if they're finishing. We don't have a student yet who's finished with an associate's degree. They do finish with a college level certifications, and we track those numbers as well.
What does the idea of readiness mean?
Where are you seeing the
It says
readiness?
Iowa post-secondary readiness
Yeah,
report.
yeah.
How
So-
do you assess readiness?
That's the name of the report, I suppose, if they're entering into a post-secondary plan.
So are they giving them like English and arithmetic tests, something to assess how ready they are for it?
This is all
This
based
raises
on how the
just
student
how they
answers the
feel
survey
about it.
on how, what they plan to do next. Yes.
So that's a whole different subject, is how ready they are to,
And what their plans are next.
how they
yes.
are in their ACTs or whatever,
Yes.
how that.
That's
I
not
guess that's
taken into
also
account.
declined a great deal in the United States. We're one of the lower ones in the world now, as far as educational system. And, you know, those are the things we shouldn't be, you know, the argument's always we're the tallest midget in the group. But that's really not a very good argument. We should figure it out, drill down and know
I
why.
think we're still trying to figure out too, I mean, I've had discussions with Pete too, and, you know, not everybody has to get a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree, or they can work from home here in Harlan, but maybe they're working in, you know, all over the world because they're able to do some things where we are trying to understand what our kids want, what kind of certificates they might need in order to branch out and be successful in whatever they would like to do. And there's lots of different opportunities, and the opportunities are changing on a very quick basis, so it's hard to keep up. That's not an excuse. I mean, we definitely need to keep pushing that number up for sure, but
I'm just curious what we spend annually on both those initiatives. Because I know Portrait of Graduate costs something to implement.
it was a little bit, but not much. We're not spending anything on it right now. And then the Cyclone Alley is just something that has just been implemented and designed by the DCAP team and Casey and others, so that's just in our partnership with Iowa Western, so. And we've gotten quite a few grants that have helped pay for certificate programs for kids. The drones, for example, like we just had a high school student get his drone certificate the other day. So through one of the grants, we're able to pay for that. So, you know, you hope he would be able to use that and move on and do something with that.
I would hope that, you know, by us doing this and tracking it, at least we can then see how we compare to other school districts in the state, other school districts, you know, how we compete nationally and not any in the state. And I think the key is not so much that if it continues to go down, as if we don't go down as fast as our neighbors. I think that's what is that if we can stop, you know, stop that bleeding a little bit.
Yeah, and this is the
slow it down.
post-secondary readiness report is a website, you can search any school in
And
Iowa.
I can send
So
some
maybe you
comparisons.
can add it to your Friday notes or
Yep,
something.
I'll add
Because,
some.
and then maybe we won't, maybe more, but then at least then we can address it, you know, if we are lower, then what do we need to do? You know, I guess.
So our drop has been more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe we do need to put that.
So if you want to adjust it like a 75 in 1 year, could some of that have to be socioeconomic issues with that certain class? Would that affect it? Yes, no, maybe, not really,
I don't
we don't know.
convince any student who, depending on their socioeconomic level, what post-secondary intent they should get into.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's a consideration because we would want to see all of our students have
60.
post-secondary intent when they graduate. So we've added programs, like we've added IJAG, which does help our more at-risk students find post-secondary intent. We've added Avenue Scholars, which offers coaching and then a scholarship to Iowa Western to the school the last couple of years. And we've added the Cyclone Alley to help students. It's only 2 years old, so part of it is the students we started with who are graduating were seniors, you know, when we started. So really that impact will hopefully be seen more as our current 8th graders or 9th graders graduate, you know, to see where they end with like their post-secondary intent. Because the hope would be that they're finishing with either knowing what they do want to do more so, or what they don't want to do, you know, one way or the other, and they're graduating with an additional opportunity capture, whatever that may be.
we've also added another program that the counselors are using called Zello, which is more of a career-based, you can do some. Okay, go. Are we on this one? Where are we?
Yeah, we're on this one. So that is part of why we have our CDL certification, which is going really well this semester. That was a grant where we have a simulator. We'll have 8 students finish with half of the program done, and then they'll complete the other half, right, like the next couple weeks after graduation, and receive their CDL. We've added authentic learning opportunities where we have students partnering with businesses or within the school to look into career pathways. Drone certification, we have that. Next year we're offering the child care grant. We have some students interested in that. We're adding a student-based enterprise through Cyclone Corner, and that will be like a coffee shop and ice cream shop where students are learning just some of those business-related opportunities. And the idea being either find out if you like it or you don't like it, but let's help you find that career path so that 2 years out you're still in and doing something that you are connecting with and passionate about. So we've looked at all of that data. We are working through our DCAP, working with the DCAP team. We've had Joni Aim coming monthly and working with our CTE teacher. She's our Green Hills CTE consultant, and just working with them through the CTE process, DCAP, all of that. So, and then we are working on integrating all of that into Portrait of a Graduate, our counseling plan. Zello is our career information system that students use. Yeah, that students use. So that is a new program we're using that is really designed to help students find, take aptitude tests or personality tests or different kinds of tests to find out what they're more inclined to enjoy, help them learn more about careers, things like that. Future Ready is an Iowa Department of Ed initiative, or through Governor Reynolds, where there's, that's a big push, is to the career pathways, helping students determine that. So we're looking at all of those areas. So just presenting to our stakeholders about it, and we're always working to have that collaboration between everyone who sees a student from a different angle and a different view. My perception is one way, counselors see how they work with students in a different light, teachers see a different way. So we always want to get everyone on the team to discuss how to best serve our students. Oh, I forgot about that. So that is Zello, and so we've been working on that, so. Like I said. Thank you.
I've got a number of questions that I'll pass on for tonight just because I won't be here all night. My one piece of feedback, I don't think students are connecting the dot between what you're doing and the opportunity that's being provided and what that means when they leave Harlan High School. I don't think they get it. They're not making that connection.
Yeah.
So if I was going to focus on anything, it would be the programs are fine, but we need to finish that connection for the students because they are not getting that right now.
I agree, especially our junior and senior students. I think the connection is, we're focusing more on our 8th, 9th grade students, especially to make that connection, to keep pushing that. We've created career pathways so that when they are registering for classes or considering classes, they can see like what types of classes they would take each year, just to help them and push them. I'm working to leverage all I can within our school day to keep students engaged in what they're doing. But I think that is part of the work that we discuss, is how to help the teenager and their parents see the benefit that what we're offering can provide for them.
And at that age, I honestly say I don't think they're mature enough to handle that conversation yet. So additional work in 8th and 9th grade, 10th grade even, I don't think is going to provide a lot of value for what you're trying to accomplish. Planting seeds, maybe, but we plant a seed, there's a million other seeds that could have been planted.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't know that that's going to add a lot of value. It doesn't hurt to expose them, of course, but we've got to fix the upperclassmen issue. That's where these things are going to lock in and where they're actually having to think about it and start to figure out when those decisions are going to be made. That's where the focus has got to be.
We see exposure as being very important as middle school and underclassmen level, so that when they do get into those upperclassmen levels, they've been exposed to a lot of areas, so then they can start to really define what path they want to take. So.
Anything else?
I got lots else, but I'm going to hold it.
One more high level
Okay.
Anything more from superintendent?
Jared is here to talk about some
I figured.
transportation.
Yep, so next year we're looking at consolidating. We did this year, consolidated a route, eliminated, just due to hardly any kids out. And it's easily possible. So what we did, had the in-town stops, 3 weeks of data for Turkleson, and 39 kids. You can see the parent pickup, and roughly that many middle schoolers next year. And then Merrill Field, 20 kids, 6 to 10 pickup next year, roughly 2 to 3. So those two, what we're thinking kind of there would be, well, similar to the other ones. But our plan is to eliminate 2 routes, country routes. Just call them the south half and the east half. Take 5, turn them into 3. And this is kind of our hiccup right here, I'd say for the most part, is running this and do that at the same time. And we can, it's very easily possible. So what we're going to do, what our plan is anyway, is to run these kids, just drop them off, get them out with the walkers, and then run them to their stops. It's just going to be 1 stop. And then, yep, 1 stop, there'll be 2 of them actually. These bottom ones, Cheyenne area, Ridgeway, that's the data for those 2. But we're just going to have 2 stops. So the Turkleson Merrill will be a 8th and Laurel stop. It's right in the middle in between them both. And then they're just going to drop off, come back up, get their route kits, and then head on out for the route. And then these other stops, it's going to be 12th and Hawkeye is the plan. Drop them off, same thing, get back up for their route. So essentially, not a whole lot's going to change there. It's hard to find drivers, and it's not getting any better.
We've talked to Jeff too, so I mean, I think there's a plan where he can get the first round of buses out, and then by the time they get back, then they can each have their road routes. So there's still in-town busing, it's just different. We're gonna change the stops a little bit. And when Jared says 39 kids are on the Turkleson bus, but 7 to 10 of them are getting picked up by a car by their parent. So it's not necessarily the intent of we're taking you part the way home. And then roughly 5 to 8 of those students, total of 39, are middle school kids, which aren't riding, only elementary kids ride the bus in town. So that's what those numbers are. So they would still have two options, I guess. And then, again, all the rural routes. And then Brian has some numbers for us financially.
What I did, when we first started talking about this, we talked about, well, what is a route run? And so what I did is kind of separated it in 3 parts. I did it, what's it cost to pay the guy that's driving the bus? Well, an average route guy all in with FICA and IPERS is going to be about $22,000. So with two less routes, if potentially if you have two less routes, it's gonna, that actually saves about $44,000. There's the next piece is the operation, and how I essentially came up with what your operational cost of a bus is we have to file an annual transportation report with the state every year. So what I did is I took that report and I separated the compensation out. I said, okay, what are the total dollars it takes to run it per mile? Well, Jared and I kind of went back and forth on this, but we said, okay, these are the total miles that we can save on a bus if we do this consolidation. That's about 625. The average cost without compensation for the driver, the average cost is about $2.03 a mile. So reducing those two routes operationally is going to save somewhere around $33.5 a year. Okay, and then these are all annual. The one that's a little harder to put a thumb on is equipment, because if you're running less buses, you're obviously servicing less buses. You're going to probably end up picking up some equipment savings because, and there's not a perfect way of doing this, but he and I talked about this for a long time. A new bus costs $150,000. We probably, at the very least, could save one bus every 3 years. That's probably at the very least.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably being conservative. So what we said is, okay, well then, if it saves a third of $150,000, that's a $50,000 annual savings. All told, if you add the three of them together, it's 140.
How many total buses are there?
Right now, there's route buses, there's 11, right now, yep.
And how many will this be running actually?
This will be 9. So actually, this year, we had a couple guys out for surgeries, whatever, medical reasons. So I've just been for probably 3-4 months kind of combining right now, just making it work rather than getting a sub. So we've really been running 10 for 3-4 months here.
But next year you'd be down to about 9
It would be 9,
buses.
yep.
It's about $127,000 a year all told.
And how's it working with Avoca? Or is it?
Job sharing?
Yeah, the job sharing.
Yeah, yep, it's,
Managing?
yep, managing.
And this, how much of this is due to, you told us, Dr. Burnett, a few weeks ago in a letter, how much the enrollment is declining a year. Was it, I forget how many students a year it was approximately.
We just declined about 9 this year. Yeah.
Okay, that's.
Where you're really seeing the decline is in the rural area.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. 70% of rural areas are declining.
And so is this, some of this is due to that factor too, I imagine?
Yeah, I'd say, most of it,
You don't
yeah.
have to,
Well, that and, I mean, a lot of these houses are, they're getting older, and some of them are rentals and out in the country,
I have a couple of thoughts. One, this really doesn't have much to do with you, but to me, the trend seems to be that we're trying to get away from in-town busing in general, which I will never be in favor of, because we're taking the most, and it could be just being a mom, but we're taking, in my opinion, the most vulnerable of kids who potentially don't have a parent that can get them, whatever the reason may be, and not getting them away to get to school. And so I don't want to say, yes, I support this, because I think what you'll do next year is take away another route. That seems to me to be what we're trying to do. Maybe it's not, but we also said when we took away daycare busing, which fine, it is what it is. But one of the things that we discussed was it wasn't because of a budget issue. I said that to people, so that was a lie if that's why we're doing it now, which I don't.
no, it wasn't.
I wouldn't argue
that's
that's the number. I wouldn't argue that's the number one impetus here.
No,
I would
not
argue this
here
is a
either.
benefit.
But it's not
I don't think it's the number.
Either way, to
Do it.
me, I feel like I said that in an untruth, if that's why we're going this direction.
Well, we also can't find drivers. I mean,
Well,
that
I
was
was,
the main-
lastly,
That was the main.
I have looked, I have not seen it advertised, not even once.
Just we don't want to drive openings.
So I have looked, I don't know how we can say we don't have people applying. I've not once seen it advertised, and I have honestly looked to see if we were looking for,
I thought we did, I thought we had a,
I'd be curious to know when we did. I have not once seen drivers
I know we-
advertised.
an application.
On our website.
I'll tell you.
It'd be where are you advertising, where are you looking? They
Well,
might not cross.
I looked on our
It's a problem for
website.
everybody then.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is
Yeah, it
you,
is.
I think this is us as a district, that I think if we say, yep, I think we should minimize these. I totally understand the work that you put into this, and I value that heavily. Because I believe you sat out there and watched those kids wholeheartedly. But I also think even if it's one kid that can't get to school from wherever, how do we put a price on even one kid? Those are my,
But there's 2 stops right now, is what we're saying. So there's 2 routes.
this
Um,
year.
Yeah. And honestly, not that we don't want to bus, but we don't have to bus legally. So that's a hard call too,
I
because
think
no one
that's what she's
lives.
saying, she's afraid of.
I know,
Oh, I'm not
yes,
afraid
and
of it. I think
no,
that's
no,
what you
yes,
intend
yes.
to do.
Well,
And
I
we're
think we have
asking
to-
people for more money for less services. I get it. I am not a genius at math, but I understand that. I don't like this. And I don't know if it's being a mom, I don't know, I don't like it.
The other thing is the Turkleton and the Merrill Field, they're not AM stops neither. Neither one of
They're
those are AM
they're just
stops.
afternoon stops.
Neither one of those are AM stops.
Jared did great answering a million of my questions when we took away some of the other routes. It's one of my routes, it's important to me, so that's why you're hearing how I feel about it.
I've
That's
got
it.
2 questions. The 12th at Hawkeye proposed stop, are we assuming most of those kids are gonna exit east?
Yep, well, some, I'm not sure which way we'll run it, but either way, the Westridge Acres Trailer Court, they'll just get off and go down into that street down through there. The other one has a sidewalk, right, that goes back west.
There is a sidewalk?
Yep, there it is.
Okay, I was thinking there wasn't a sidewalk.
Yeah, it's right on the south side
I walk
of
it
Blake's
every day.
Audio there. It goes up to there. Yep.
And then
That's why you're so healthy.
for the rural routes, timing wise for those kids, what are the start and stop times that we think those will be impacted?
Those ones, so there'll be, the 3 routes would be, and then instead of 5, it'd be 3. You wouldn't see a huge, I mean, maybe 15 minutes, maybe they might be, maybe 15, 20. Just depends on who's riding some days.
It's been years, but we pulled our kids off the buses specifically because they were always first pickup and it was getting as early as 6:45 in the morning. And we said we can't do that anymore, it's killing them.
Yep, these ones, they shouldn't change that much, honestly. I mean, I drove them, I drove all the routes, compared to other, like, Avoca, they got hour routes. I'm just thinking, I talked to them, like, they're on for a long time. These kids won't be, they'll be getting home at the latest one, some of them, 4 o'clock, and that'd be pushing it.
So what time do they normally get on the bus, though, like most routes?
Here
What
at
time-
school,
No, what time do they get on?
Oh, in the
bus?
morning?
Yeah, what time's like the
Oh,
normal?
there's-
I mean, what's the earliest that we require somebody to get on the bus?
that I don't know, but just after driving them this year, I wouldn't say a single one of the guys picked anybody up before 7 o'clock.
7 was kind of always the long-term start, but ours one year got pushed early and we pulled our kids from the buses on that time.
Yeah, it's just, some of them are tough if you're going out one way, and then instead of backtracking all the way, it's,
Getting on the bus at 7, getting off the bus at 4 for school
Yeah.
occurs from 8 to 3.
but next year, it'll be, yeah,
It's a long
next
time on
year.
the bus for
Not that way, didn't
those kids that are
Yeah.
first pickup, last drop.
That'd be a parent suggestion, it's great, even go back when I was growing up here, they'd reverse routes halfway through the year, if you were first on, you were first off.
Yep.
For whatever reason, our route ran the other way, our kids were first on, last off, that was just brutal for them.
Yeah, most of ours, I'd say pretty much all of them are, it's the opposite, morning first, yeah.
what prevents that.
Keep it as short as you can for all the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, what we're kind of looking at there.
Thank you. I do think it's good out there.
All right, well, have a good night.
Thanks, Sarah. Have a great night. Are we still the superintendent?
Well, I got one more good news.
You're good.
Kylie got another grant, for Open Science for $119,070. So it's really awesome. So.
And what's it for? Science?
Open Science, so Open Science is science. And
Okay.
it's just, we don't, they have curriculum, but we don't have to, we're going through the curriculum cycle right now trying to decide. So, but what the other piece of it is it has tons of equipment, so we can use this for lots of different equipment and then not use the curriculum. I mean, we don't have to buy the curriculum, we can just buy all the equipment and use it. So we're super excited about it. It has to be purchased by June 30th, so she's on it, asking all the science teachers what they need. Oh,
You're good. I'm gonna double check.
and we also, wait, I got one more. I'm sorry. One more good news I forgot. We won the Shelby County Nonprofit of the Year Award on Friday, so that was exciting as a school district. Yeah, now I'm done.
Okay, facility committee update. Any updates to?
We're waiting for casework in the intermediate. They're really kind of, they're doing some stuff over there, but that's kind of the next thing. Because even some of the flooring out in the middle, they won't do until some of that stuff comes. I did walk over there. You can, in the west part of the high school, where they're finishing the classrooms up down there, they all have drywall up. You can tell where everything's gonna be. They're doing, right now, they're doing a lot of the wiring, the rough wiring they have to. The team rooms / training area, they have the metal studs up, and I think what's holding them up there is there's some mechanical work has to be done. I do know they have, what they call the mini splits that were providing the heating and air conditioning because the old air handler had died there. I think those have to come out here fairly soon, and then they'll start doing some of the duct work in there. And then I peeked my head in the locker rooms, and they've done the rough out destruction, or the rough part. They haven't done a lot of it, but all the receptacles are gone. All the receptacles gone, all the stalls are gone, out of the bathroom areas.
Still ahead of schedule, or is it?
Yep. I asked Steve, that last week, and he said, yes, as long as we get the casework over here. And it's supposed to be coming pretty soon.
Yeah, keep saying that. Yeah.
And furniture, it all,
Furniture won't be in for this.
resolved or some of the.
We saved a little.
Furniture
We
will be
got it
in
resolved.
June 15th,
I thought it
June
was
something.
9. Yeah,
somewhere in June.
yeah,
Furniture comes.
first couple weeks of June.
But overall, we're probably, he said,
Does smell
probably
like
5 to
burning.
7 days ahead.
So you smell burning?
They're in a good position to wait on stuff to come, so.
They're speaking off topic, they're not referring to anything you're saying. I know what you're, yeah, I don't have a very sensitive nose, but something does smell like it's
Jeff left, yeah, go, yeah. We'll just do elementary school here. The 5th grade band and choir performed for the entire elementary school. That's always kind of fun. FFA coloring contest. FFA's done a lot of things in the last few weeks here. There's some kindness awards. Kindergarten learned how bread is made down there on the left, and Coach Sloth at our literacy night was very entertaining for the kids. He was also there all day in different classrooms too. Bill?
Yeah, the first two pictures there from Mrs. Bricks's social studies class. So they were talking about regions around the world and like population density and GDP, and just to have kids understand about regions around the world and what countries and maybe had more production going on. So on the squares there was taped out different sizes of land masses in the world and how many people then were, so they divided out in terms of, okay, well, here's how many people live in that country, and so then where you see the other square with one person living. So there's some representation of how big or what the population density was of different countries around the world. So that's what that big two pictures were. That next one where it says Renaissance Unit, I asked Kylie, I said, I don't know what that, I don't recognize those kids, when we found out that's from the intermediate building. So that's something that was going on in 5th grade. So I think they were, I asked Kylie, I said, well, do you know anything about that? And she was, I think they were talking about the Sistine Chapel or something and painting, and so I don't know if maybe those kids were supposed to be drawing something from underneath or what. The next picture we had some kids go on to what used to be called maybe the Math Bee. It's called Math Counts now, and they did very, very well, that group. They finished and qualified to go to the state competition, so that was the regional one, and so they will go and compete then as individuals and as a team this Friday in Des Moines. So that was really good. And then the next group of kids, there's 2 high schoolers in there, and then the middle 3 or 4 are middle school kids, and that is National History Day. And so the 3 gals there in the black outfits put on a presentation about women's suffrage and the movement of that from the last century. And they haven't found out how they did yet, but there is an opportunity for them maybe to move on to a state competition with their presentation. So those 2 groups got taken to competitions by our tag teacher and with some assistance from our social studies department and math departments. So Tara Landsman actually took them to those competitions.
Thanks, Bill. Casey?
Yeah, the high school, Levi Obrecht finished his drone certification, which that's a big test and a big deal. It's the same one as what any of us would have to take to be able to fly a drone, and so I know he studied for that a long time, took the test, tough test, and passed it, so that's a good celebration. Our robotics team is, they went to Des Moines for a mock competition. Their robot Cinnamon this year, they took Cinnamon up there and they work on it, and then they're able to see how other teams are doing and figure out what they want to add or change or whatever before they head to UNI next week. On Wednesday, this week. Wednesday they head to UNI and they will compete in the robotics competition for this year. So I can't read the names, but we had our all-state selections for our Iowa Jazz Band. So we have those posted, and IJC is coming up on April 12th. That sounds right? So that'll be in Ames. Last week we had Drive Your Tractor to School Day, and it was really fun. We also had our coach from Capturing Kids' Hearts was here on campus, and so I said, you guys see this, he's from Texas, so we went out and checked out the tractors too, so that was fun. And then the last picture is my son and I have a son who's a sophomore, and we we did an underground spirit week with the teaching staff a couple weeks ago. So you have all the adults are dressing up in certain ways. This was dressed like a student day, but you don't tell the kids what you're doing, and you know, it was just kind of fun. Like the kids are all wondering why we're all in black and things like that. So it was dressed like a student day, so I dressed like my son, so it was kind of fun. And the kids we had kids say, can you do this again? It's been really fun to try to figure out what all the teachers are dressing up as and what the theme is, and so they thought that was fun. A little bit of fun in the day for during what can be kind of a grind time in the year, so.
Thanks, Casey.
Yep.
At the district level, this week, Literacy Night, there were, I think, about 300 people there, Literacy Night. Donkey basketball was very fun if you got to go. I don't know if any of you went, but when Anthony asked at first, I was like, really? Won't that hurt the gym floor? Won't that? But they had shoes on, and the kids loved it. It was just a super fun night. I don't know, Casey, if you have anything else to add. But
No, it was hilarious.
Yeah, great fundraiser. I think they raised quite a bit for the American Cancer Society.
For Relay for Life.
Relay for Life.
Relay for Life.
Okay. And then our STEM kids represented Harlan at the Capitol for STEM Day, so that was exciting. I got to talk to, that's a picture with Sarah and some state representatives. Construction updates are shared each Friday on social media, so if anyone's looking to see pictures of things, so that's the boardroom right there. That's an old one though, because I feel like it has carpet in it now. Oh, it still doesn't. Okay. Yeah. And then Mr. Mosier was named the basketball coach, so and we're voting on that today, pending board approval. That's all I got.
Okay, we will move on to action items. First one up is personnel reports.
Look how long that is, you guys. We've been working hard. So we've had some resignations, but we've also had a lot of new hires. So I'm going to focus on the positive here. We've got a recommendation to hire Dan Arns. He will be a high school business teacher, replacing Mr. Cohorst. Dean Mosier as the basketball coach. Michaela Hamill as our Special Olympics coach. Cody Parmley, he is really excited to be our elementary music teacher next year. And he's got experience, a lot of experience. He's getting another master's degree. So he'll be able to help with lots of different areas of music. Erin Goddard, she's going to come on as a part-time math teacher in the high school. She's going to share with Jennifer Hamilton. So they presented to us a month or so ago, and would like to both work part-time. We're doing that here in kindergarten, and it's working out really well for our teachers. So we're wanting to see how it works out in the high school. Sharon Whitson, she is currently working for us in the middle school as a school-based interventionist through the AEA. She has her counseling, well, she's got a counseling endorsement, but also a principal endorsement, and she is going to take the place of Shannon Dare, who's just moving up to the high school to replace Jaden Vandenberg. So we're excited to have her. She's going to be a great fit. And then we've got Thomas Fink, freshman basketball, and then we just heard back from Olivia Saxon. She wants to come on board as our high school art teacher. So, and she is fresh out of school. So, yeah, we've been busy. We still have a Spanish teacher and a preschool teacher that we're trying to find in terms of certified positions, but and keep looking. And what's really exciting is contracts went out last Monday, and so hopefully they have 21 days to sign their contracts. Our teachers do, and so the day that those are due is April 7th. So we'll know lots more by the next board meeting.
What do you expect?
I don't expect anyone.
That's it.
No, not anyway.
Ridiculous.
Well, usually, I mean, most of the time they're pretty good about letting us know in advance of those, the early retirements and the other ones. So hopefully we don't have a lot more, if any. So, that's what I hope.
Can I get a motion to approve the personnel report?
So moved to approve the personnel.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Moving on to the 25-26 AEA Purchasing Cooperative Agreement.
So this is something we do annually, and it just puts us in a bigger pool to get a better pricing point we use it for Martin Brothers for food, small, just operational items, and
Those things?
then, yeah, just mostly for Martin Brothers. We do it mostly for food and paper for some, so.
Any big changes here?
Oh, and these, yeah.
Any big changes with the AEA downsizing here or not?
Not in this
Not in this.
purchasing agreement, it's gonna stay statewide, but we will have another, like just what the services that we will be ending up paying for and that we want, I'll explain that next meeting, yep.
So this, I feel like this is more for nutrition services. They negotiate our prices so we can purchase our food at a lower cost and from one vendor, which is really, really nice.
Can I get a motion to approve the 25-26 AEA Purchasing Cooperative Agreement?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then the approval of the 23-24, sorry, skipped. Approval of the 25-26 school calendar. I don't even have excuses tonight. I don't have my glasses. Questions?
School calendar.
No, I was just gonna have a question on other one that they were talking about. If they were passing legislation.
Yeah.
No,
And I guess, because right now it's saying you can't start before the 23rd. And you said they have legislation what are they talking about doing, that you can start it before before the state fair is over?
Well, I think it's like if the state fair ends on a Friday, it's the Tuesday after the state fair. Or they use a day of the week instead of the specific date of the 23rd. So it gives you much more leeway to get things done. Because when the 23rd lies on a Friday, who wants to start school on a Friday? So you're out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which makes you go 3 more days longer.
Well, the
But
state
this
fair
week-
gets over on the 14th of August,
Well,
or 15th of August?
so I think usually it gets over, that second or third, but
So we're starting on the 25th.
See right here.
No, but I'm
Okay.
just saying in the alternate
If they
one.
change it is what he said.
if they
If they
change it,
change it.
yes.
The alternate one, so that means that if they change that, then the 19th would be the, I don't think
That's
so.
17th, Bill said.
17th.
Oh, it gets over on the 17th, okay. So the Tuesday after it gets over, okay.
So then you would be able to
Start
start
on
like
the
right away,
Okay.
yeah, versus Saturday. Okay, Jim?
Just a ancillary question. How, has it changed very much as far as the snow days, which affects this great deal? I guess I don't want to see our superintendent tarred and feathered, but it seems like school's called off for any reason. And maybe that's the way everybody wants it, but it's just an interesting question. I know one time you really got chewed out by somebody up north that did a little bit of ice. But when I was a kid, they had school even if there was a club. So we walked uphill both ways.
Yeah.
On the railroad tracks. I don't know.
Shared a pair of boots too.
I'm
It's a
on.
different era.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jared is very much involved in those decisions, Mike Dare is involved in those decisions, and then I'm on 2 different superintendent groups. So some are down south and some are up north and around. And we just all kind of go back and forth. What are you going to do? How much did you get? Are you going late? So it's a group decision area-wise, and then it's also a group decision. I mean, I don't have to do, lots of times I don't always do. Many times, like I'll pick on IK and Manning, but they've closed quite a bit, and I'm like, I don't think we need to close. I think we can do a 2-hour late start. So we try, but Jared goes and drives the roads and makes sure, yeah, I'm not gonna ever be any, I'm gonna have to like the decision.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
either way, something's
yeah.
not happening.
Yeah.
It's really pushed toward really safety though.
Absolutely, it's safety, and then you think the high school kids that are driving in, and we do try to call it as early as we can, just because there are kids that get here to lift weights at 6 or 6:30, and we don't want them to be here too early, so.
Just want to ask that question.
In the morning, yeah, my goal is to try to do it the night before if possible, just because then everybody can plan a little bit.
We're gonna miss here.
I was only saying, but I think we covered it in the public hearing, that teachers weigh in on this.
Yes, they do.
So for people that are like, oh, how does this come about, or how do teachers heavily weigh in on this, right?
Absolutely, they do, yes. And I just want to just reinstate too that, like the comp day that the teachers get for conferences is to compensate for the extra hours that they work at night. So in most districts around here, the conferences start like right at 3 or 3:30, and they'll go till 7 or 7:30 for 2 nights, and that's your 8 hours, and then you get that Friday off or whatever. Here, they have started the kids get out early at 1, and then conferences don't start till 3:30. So I think past practice was that gave elementary teachers and teachers time to prepare for, but right now, current practice is teachers leave from 1 to 3, so they're really not working for that compensation time. So I know that was one of the questions that came up. So we did move conferences back to start at 2 o'clock. So kids get out at 1, conferences start at 2, and then your comp time is the 3:30 to 7, or the 3:30 to 6, 6:30 or 7. So that's just something
The
that,
timing of conferences will be from 2 p.m. until
2 to 6 and 2 to 7.
2 to 7.
Do you think some of those, the average working parent isn't getting there at 2 for conferences, will that be a problem?
especially at the elementary, yes, that's a good point, but especially at the elementary level, they oftentimes schedule those. So we will see, and if it doesn't work, we'll go back to 3. We also took a little time off at the end, so high school does not get well attended, middle school, I don't know, isn't, so
Correct.
there's,
One of them.
no. Elementary is the one where most of them are planned. They're actually put in on the schedule.
But trust you me, you don't go in right away and schedule your conference time, and then you see it's coming up, so you gotta go back and find the email to get in there to schedule your conference time.
Yeah.
So no one really schedules it right away
Yeah.
unless they do.
Yeah.
Well, you haven't been
The Darlene is on it.
Yeah. Yes, but they did vote, Jade, you're right. We did ask for some input. I mean, we obviously, we do it. It's a giant puzzle because you move one piece and then you've got to shift something else. You have to make sure you have your 1,080 hours, your X amount of professional development days, your X amount of teacher days for their contract. Yeah. So, but I'm excited to have a student help us next year, and we always will invite, we've invited staff, and then we get like one to show up, so. But we'll keep trying.
I think it was on school day when we discussed the calendar, so teachers could have showed up pretty easily.
So we don't have, we did give you guys an example of if we started on the 19th. We didn't put it on here because it's not possible just yet. Do you want to, do you have it in front of you? Do you want to, so if we were able to start earlier, we could be out by May 15th.
Right now, the first semester is a little shorter in days than the second semester. So if they so if they did allow it
How could we
earlier
get out
start
that early, and then this year we're getting out so late? So it start?
Well, because we have to add 3 more snow days.
Well, and.
Otherwise,
So
we'd have been
if-
out before
so, but if we
Memorial Day
had Snow
normally.
days next year, then it would get later.
Yes, yes.
If you
we did.
started.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Whoops.
So I guess that's our question too, is if the board,
There really isn't any change except for the start date on this and the end date. Just so you know.
Because of your semester sizes.
Yeah, so what we'd like to do, because if we change it, we have to have a whole nother hearing and prove it.
So
So
we would-
I'm wondering if we can approve the one that we presented with the understanding that if legislation passes, we'll start on August 19th.
Can we do that?
Can
if
you
we
do
don't-
that?
We wouldn't have presented this for public hearing.
Yeah, but we didn't present this at the public hearing. We should have
we
presented this
did-
as an
we should've-
alternate.
Yep,
Well, it's the same,
yep, we should
we got it.
Yeah.
okay.
Then
It said there was
all the
nobody here,
next-
so we can just reach
We just, if it happens, emergency.
Or can it go on the budget?
We have to put it in the paper.
Again?
yeah.
And they will have to do all.
Let's just see if it passes, we can always change it.
Yeah, we can change it, yeah.
Okay, well, I moved to,
Okay.
That's the one that is presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
Motion passes. We should have thought ahead.
Yeah, well, we did, and I should have presented it. I
Yeah,
wasn't.
that's all right. Okay, next up is approval of the 23-24 audit report.
Okay, this is what Brian,
That's what I presented.
Presented last month.
Basically, all past practice, we've just always accepted it. We didn't have it as an action item, so we're just accepting it.
Anyone have any questions?
The only thing I'm going to comment, I think the budget really is more important, though, isn't it? Because it takes a lot of, the audit's kind of after the fact.
But it's really an audit. What an audit is it's to show that you're in compliance. It shows you financial results, but it shows a lot of what they're auditing, that you're being compliant with all the rules and regulations that are set forth.
And the budget is probably a bigger challenge for you, isn't it, to get all of it?
Sure.
And T's runs.
The thing with budget, Jim, is you're doing it kind of throughout the year because you're doing a certified budget now, but that's basically guessing what's going to happen all next year. Not guessing, taking an educated guess what's going to happen all the whole next year. But we'll go back this fall after we get counts of the kiddos, and then we'll allocate where the line item budget stuff is. You know, here's our certified budget, then we do a line item budget, which tells us, right now, we don't know exactly how many FTEs we're going to have exactly, but we have a pretty good idea. That's where we'll go and we'll allocate them out. Usually, they're going to align pretty close unless there's some major change. And then we're also looking at, like, the current year that we're in, when we're doing our certified budget for next year, we're actually looking at it right now.
When do we talk about the budget next regular meeting?
What we'll have at the next meeting, I presented it tonight, essentially.
But we don't get to discuss it during the open meeting, right?
Might
The
not
public
happen.
hearing?
What essentially happens, Jade, is you guys are welcome. By law, what we have to do is we have to have 2 budget hearings. What most schools, and I guess what I chose to do is I'm going to present it. What I've already met with the finance committee, we got their thoughts on it. What I chose to do was present it at the first budget hearing, so you guys have the ability. I don't want to present it at the second budget hearing and you turn around and you're supposed to vote on the budget. You got 22 minutes to decide. You know, what I want you to do is see it, have questions, digest what we've done, and then by law, we have to have that second hearing. My thoughts, we have the second hearing. If you have any further questions, I answer the questions. We adjourn that hearing essentially, and then we go into the regular meeting and we approve it.
And only thing I would say is there's nobody in the world I'd rather have doing this stuff than you, Brian, because I know you're excellent at it.
I take that as a compliment.
Yeah,
I might store that one on the shelf somewhere.
yeah, I think in the discussion, we need to really dumb it down because it's so much, it's just more complicated.
And I try.
Mhm.
There's only a certain level you can get it down to and still be accurate too.
You can do it.
Well, you let me present it. I don't know.
I'll take that next year.
I'm kidding.
And
No,
there's some things
that would work.
There's some things that the board can kind of understand that are the challenges, but when it's all so much in the weeds, there's so many terms that, I mean, we have no chance of understanding so many of those charts. I mean, it's just at a level, it's like listening to Greek. I mean, you just don't understand a lot of it.
We have a chance
In
to
reality,
understand, but it's.
In reality, part of the reason I get into charts, if you really want to know, is to see where it actually comes from in our budget.
Yeah.
The spoken part of the first part, the first part of it that I actually had typed up, that's the nuts and bolts. The charts are there to make you understand how this all glues together.
But basically, it comes down to revenue and expenses and some things that people can't understand. And, you know, rather than just be a rubber stamp for all these things, we should kind of have some level of understanding of some of these numbers.
Well,
I'm
I'm concerned
trying
a
to
little
do
bit
something.
about it, that's why I'm asking. I'm genuinely concerned, like even when I got the paper at my house, like for some people, myself included, it is seemingly like a decent percentage raised, and it does, I understand from an outside perspective looking in, appear like we said, hey, we're going to do the bond and it's going to be this, and now we're asking for more. I am concerned about what it's
We're not
We're
asking.
What I would tell
I
you,
realize that we're not asking for more on the bond, like I understand that. What I'm saying is now we want to raise it in another area, and it's,
when we originally did where we thought our tax rates could be after the bond was passed, it was somewhere around, and don't quote me on the exact amount, but I think it was $14.63. Our goal was to keep it under, to keep it under 14. That was our ultimate goal. And if I look at our 5-year projection, this actually in our 5-year projection is our highest year. A lot of that comes down to the fact that right now our cash reserves have went down. They were forced to go down, and not trying to get too far in the weeds to quote you.
No, this is good stuff, this is good information.
But to be really honest with you, the stimulus money was great, but the stimulus money actually forces you not to cash reserve for an extended period of time. Well, during that extended period of time, you have sped deficits or something that draws in your cash. Guess what? You got to get it back somehow, because otherwise your solvency ratio, which happens to be your ability to pay your bills, your solvency ratio goes away. And you're getting to the point where you're going to have to borrow funds. So our raise this year is nothing more than to get our cash reserve level back up to where our solvency ratio stays at an acceptable level. You want it somewhere in the 10 to 12 range. That's our target. Okay, so I would tell you this, pretty simply put, our raise this year is to get our cash reserves back up to where our solvency ratio is in a good spot.
So the thing is that we really didn't raise, it really doesn't show that our levy went up, it's just at the dollars. You know, our levy stayed the same, the assessment went up, so now, but it does look, because they're seeing that instead of, I don't have the exact numbers, but on the sheet that was sent out to the public, the dollar amount that the school district is getting.
Is that what you're talking, $13.97?
Yeah, that's pretty much, isn't that the same as last?
It's up.
It's up a little bit,
It's up what?
but then if you look at the total dollars that the school is receiving, it's gone up quite a
I got
bit.
an idea, who's on the building, the finance committee? Why don't the three of those guys make a report to the rest of the board, that maybe a little, because you know how to talk to people about income and expenses and just some of the generalities, so we're just not a rubber stamp for something there's no way we can understand. And some of the basics, we're not going to understand everything.
Because if we didn't need it, because technically what you're, if we didn't need it in the budget, we could have actually lowered our, we could have lowered that level.
There's no fat in this budget.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
say
like some
that
of these
very
guys out
clearly.
here, they're worried, they don't understand, I don't think, that this was passed 2 years ago. Once we passed the bond issue, I mean, the horse was out of the barn because we were gonna come to this day that we had to pay for it. And if that amounts to about $3 million a year, it looks like, in a payment, and that's what we're making up. But somebody ought to say, hey, it's cost us about $3 million a year for all this extra construction, and I think it's kind of as simple as that.
And you gotta also remember that, we don't control the valuations of what the taxes go up. That's,
We also don't control, I mean,
we don't really.
when you get that sheet in the mail, to be honest with you, it's probably more confusing than is it anything, because it's got everybody's on. And I got a phone call last week, and they asked, what do you know about this sheet? I said, well, I know what our line means, but if you want to know about the other lines, you're going to have to call the other taxing authorities, because I don't know what went into it,
So, and that was a great talk about the 23-24 audit.
Question of personal privilege.
What did you say?
I'd like to take a 2-minute break if I may.
Yep. Yes, sir. Thank you. What do you think, Dr. Wayne, about all this stuff? The finances. Yeah, maybe we should.
Should I pause that?
Yeah, you
I don't
better
want to stop
pause.
it and then
No,
restart.
I don't think we can do that.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay, we can just, I mean, I think what Brian's point too is just about the spending authority in general. And it's really hard to understand school finance because you only get this much to spend, and then when you get the ESSER dollars put into this much, and then the ESSER, the extra, the COVID dollars.
Citizen who's watching right now, you just lost a student.
Well, the COVID, the extra COVID money, yeah. So you have that extra COVID money, and then when that goes away, you backfill a little bit, just so you have the cash in case you would need it. But Brian is very fiscally conservative, I feel like, and is doing a really good job, and very,
One of the things I stress to the finance committee is we have essentially three, what I'm going to call financial goals that we really, and these were set many years ago, and I think we've updated them over the years. That there's three really things you have to focus on. One is you have to have
That's too much for you.
And our goal is to keep our spending authority where it's at. So when it starts going down, it's hard to stop it from going down.
Some of it's
The
not.
second thing is we have to focus on our solvency ratio. Our solvency ratio is our ability to pay bills as they come in, okay? You don't want to be in a position where your solvency ratio is 0 and all of a sudden you're borrowing just to get to the next year. The third thing is the tax rate. These three things are so intertwined, but if you can find a happy medium in all three of them, that's our goal. I would tell you, when we do our comprehensive financial projection model, we get to the one screen, we go through the whole thing, we get to the one screen, and I said, hey, Jenny, this is a screen where we're sitting there and we're looking at, do we have enough cash? Are we keeping our authority where we're at? Are we keeping our expenses in line? And I guess I feel where we're at right now, we're at that sweet spot. Do we have to adjust every year? Absolutely. But I feel like since we've been using that projection model, we have such a better idea of what something we're doing now affects 3 years from now. And believe you me, it does.
Has impact.
That's, I mean, that's a beautiful explanation. And that would really help us even have some numbers in there for us to kind of understand it, because, I mean, that's a wonderful explanation. That we aren't going to automatically understand, at least I don't know about some of you guys, but Jade, you got it down?
No, I just think, I understand that they're different piles of money. I just think it appears that we're taxing the same people just over and over and over and more and more and more for everything, because we don't have any choice,
What I
but
would suggest to anybody that responds to that is okay, tell me exactly where I can remove something and still have insurance, pay for the building, educate
but surely
our
we
kids.
can't take that approach. Surely
No,
we can't
no,
take the
because-
approach of we are doing everything perfectly, because we're probably not.
No.
That's not a personal thing.
I would never claim that. I would tell you, if anybody thinks there's fat in this budget, I'd love to have them show me where.
I mean, we are reducing 4 positions.
We're reducing
And-
position.
and then-
We're operational sharing.
Yeah,
We're
trying to gain some-
trying, we'd like to have less bus routes because they cost money too. That's not the sole reason we're doing it, but guess what? It does help. So,
Okay, your revenue comes from 2 places, the property tax and the sales tax, is that?
the revenue will come from property taxes, sales tax, and then state aid. That's going to be your 3 major ones. You're going to have some federal dollars such as Medicaid and stuff like, well, at present. So, to this point, we've had federal.
Our employees is huge.
83% of our costs is compensation. 83%.
See, I mean, you just, he knows.
That's where your budget gets really
Yeah.
tough,
Yeah.
because 83% of your budget is going
Yeah,
up
it's going
3%
up
every year.
You're doing it.
But wouldn't you agree, you guys, we're the ones that will discuss because we continue to just allow it to keep going, like, we're the ones that people want to talk to about
Sure,
it.
sure.
Not them. So,
Yes.
like, we're the ones that continue to keep saying, yes, 3% for teachers, which I did not vote against, but, like, we're the ones that continue to keep saying, yep, I think more is more, yep, more is more. That is what I'm saying. As it stands, I have some concerns about it.
And the folks out here had some concerns, and so we need to be able to
That's
answer
what
those
they
concerns,
should.
just like Brian did. I mean, you gotta be able to say, I don't think, you show me where the fat is. I mean, that's what we want to hear.
So do you want to have a work study group?
I mean, I'm willing to rely on the finance committee, but I'd like to have the whole board here, something that's coherent for us to,
We got a board, we got a problem with
We'd have to just have a-
meeting.
I'd have to have
A work,
session.
A work session.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with that. You, I mean,
I don't want to just vote no, but I want to understand more before I vote yes. So that's where I'm at.
and we're just voting on the audit now, you know, not.
Right,
the,
that's what I was saying.
for
When would
next
we
week.
talk about it?
That'll be next week probably,
'Cause-
or next month, I should say.
For the budget.
For the budget.
the budget would be in April.
Right, but I'm saying
We're on the
if
same
it's
page.
until then, and it comes down to it, we either talk about it all then, or,
Or we have a work session
Yeah.
and we discuss it during the work session. We can do that.
I would be more comfortable with you being more comfortable.
Yeah.
So would I.
The only other piece I might share that is important
The work session.
for you to, having looked at the health insurance requirements and the way the board decided to set those other past years, we carry about $500,000 in risk if our insurance policy would get maxed out, that we've got to have cash reserves to be able to pay for. And I've seen, I shared with these guys at the finance committee, I've seen 5 or 6 businesses in the last year who have partially self-insured have that entire bill come due. And so we've got to be prepared for things like that, that, you know, you can't really budget for, but could absolutely happen if you have a couple of major medical expenses and that policy gets.
So outside of you saying that, we would have had no earthly idea that that's a thing, obviously.
And it's a reasonable
Let's
strategy.
do a work study.
Yeah. It's a
Jay,
reasonable strategy,
just one more thing, and I kind of digressed a lot here, but we might as well keep digressing.
I've tried to stop it.
When we prepare a budget, I say very sincerely, there are very, very few things that control that rate that we can control. And I say that very sincerely. One is a cash reserve levy. Our cash reserve levy this year, we're doing because we have to build our reserves back up to keep ourselves rich, okay? The second thing we can control is the management levy. Management levy, deductibles have gotten so high on the property and casualty, we have to have some reserves. Now, there is legislation right now proposed that it's going to put a cap on what a management fund can have. I've seen districts that have 4 and 5 times what their annual expenditures in their management fund. Ours will typically run, we will have 1.6 in it, probably 1.6 of annual. But with deductibles going so high, you don't know if you're going to use that deductible. You got to have some there because you don't get a mulligan if you don't have enough. So that's part of the reason we keep it about where I'd say ours is 1.6. I think they're going to cap it at 1.8. So in the management fund, I feel like everything we've done is justified. Can you say Pepple go to 0? Sure, but what are we going to fix our equipment?
Right.
Our debt levy, we're levying what we need. As you saw, we even are a little bit short that we should have a subsidized at 8,000. So I don't feel like there's anything else. You get beyond that, that's all aid and levy. And I say it's formula driven. It's formula driven by strictly by what your valuations are and what your enrollment is. I hope that kind of makes you understand
far into this in a work study.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve the 23-24 audit report.
Yeah. I can second.
Oh, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Let me take a deep breath. And next up, see it, is the 28E Joint Sharing Agreement, Special Ed Administrative Associate.
Okay, so now that the AEA is slimming down quite a bit, we will receive 10% of the special ed dollars that had gone to the AEA. So that amounts to about $50,000 back to us. What we would like to do with that $50,000 is get into an agreement with AHST, ICAM Manning, Riverside, and Missouri Valley, and hire a person who actually is currently working in the AEA, but we would have her as our own between these 5 districts to help us with a lot of special education pieces that the AEA is no longer going to help with. And we would divide her salary and benefits by 5, so it would be about $16,000 per person or per district. She is an amazing person, has access to Achieve, which is the whole IEP system, and has, through her experience at the AEA, ran all 35 districts to some degree. So we're excited to, if possible, hire her and get into this agreement with the 5 other districts. And I'm predicting that there will be more districts that want to be involved in this next year once they figure out what their special ed budgets are.
Just to one more thing, can I add
Yeah.
to that? One more thing to add to that. We would have to backfill what the AEA is doing presently clerically for us. We have to pick it up somewhere here. This is an opportunity to get a good person and share it with several other districts. Probably ultimately cost us less.
Is this a number kind of crunching position? Just
She can
Budget.
run all different kinds of reports. She will do all of what, they have a special ed count, they call it each year, so in November.
The tracking.
And they track all of the IEPs, if we've got them leveled correctly, how many pairs do we have the correct minutes, just, yes, she can help us look at numbers, she can help, she's not a special ed teacher, but she is familiar with an IEP and can help navigate IEPs.
Is this Iowa-driven laws that require all this?
The change in the EAs.
But I mean, this reporting, does that go into the state of Iowa, or does it go to the federal government?
Yeah, the Department of Ed, no,
Iowa
Iowa
Department.
State, yes, State Department.
So it'll be 16,000 per.
District.
Per district,
Yeah.
and we're
There are 5
getting,
districts,
and you said something like 50?
each one.
We get 50, we will be gaining 50,000 in special ed dollars, our 10% that we get back.
And spending
And spending 16.
16.
But is that all, or is there other things that the 50, rest of the
Oh, yeah,
50,000
we can definitely use that towards paraprofessionals.
So
It
we'll
has to
get
be a
50 and
special.
spend 16, but then we'll have additional funds to use towards
Yep.
special ed.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
So we're splitting this individual between 5 schools. It looks to me we're the largest of the schools. Is that an effect? We're going to still fit
We're all
perfectly
just,
fine?
yeah, we all just said
Problem.
20%.
20% is
Yeah.
perfect for
We will
what we
collect the other 80%.
I'm just saying 20% of her time is enough for our needs.
Does that cover it?
Yes, I hear what you're
Bigger
saying.
school
Yep.
needs a whole lot more time.
Yep, we will, and we can definitely, this is just an annual contract too, and it's a brand new concept, so if we need more, we can maneuver that because we wanted to hold the contract. Yes,
Who wrote the contract?
Ryan.
You want to pay for it.
Yeah.
You used.
We used one
I used
that
one.
was,
I borrowed it.
and he borrowed.
They're 20 agreements out there.
I'll move to approve this pending approval by the other 4 schools.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We are at approval of the service agreement with Timberline Billing Service LLC.
This is just Medicaid, that's the annual thing as well. I just wanted to show you real quick. These are numbers from 2018 on. So we have raised our Medicaid. That bottom number is what is actually we get to keep. So the 56,000 from 2018-19 up to last year we had 175,000. So we've tripled it plus. And this year we'll probably hit that 125,000.
Didn't we implement somebody to go after that?
So Sarah Strong
Yeah.
does a great job. And you can see there too, like in 18-19, we were collecting on 13 kids. Sarah does a great job of digging in and seeing who can we collect on. And we're up to 21 or 22. And even students that attend outside of we have some students that are attending in Sioux City, we get some money for their services because we're paying quite a bit for it too.
I thought I remembered us putting somebody.
Yeah, so
helping
Sarah's
drop
great
some
with
of this.
that. And then that's another thing that.
What is her job? What does she do?
She's the guidance counseling secretary.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
So this is additional funding for us
simple
too on the
numbers to
special
look at
ed.
are 22 versus 13, and we have less students, so.
Yeah, yeah.
How long have we been using Timberline?
No, Jim, probably before I got here.
Oh, so they
14, 15, 13, 14, somewhere.
this is their specialty, huh?
Yes,
There's
they have
several
several different school districts, so they just, yeah.
So what are we approving? Working
We're
our
approving, yeah, the
contract?
contract with them. Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Timberline Billing Service LLC.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and we are now at the approval of E-rate internet bid.
Okay, Jeremy was not able to be here. Brian, do you want to talk to this, or do you want me to?
I'll,
Okay. So Jeremy, I'll talk. Okay, went out and got 3 different bids for our E-rate, and HMU had the best bid at this time. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
How long have we used the same company, or are we switching?
So we are switching. I'm on the HMU board, and Brian has a family member at FMCTC, so we're just trying to
yeah, we let Jeremy
recluse ourselves from.
Jeremy vetted the bids, and he
So that I want clarification, best bid.
So,
Lowest bid?
Lowest, it was lowest.
they were the lowest.
That's,
I'm sorry, I
that's
should have
fine.
said that.
You
Yeah.
actually, on E-rate, there's a couple, he does a matrix, and the matrix one, number one, you give them a points of cost. Yeah, but past practice at the board, we've had HMU, it's been quite a while, but we've had HMU before at the bid. He looks at, we get a bid from one company, we'll name every year, that actually, they say, well, yeah, they're competitive price-wise, but we know for a fact, because we state the bid, it has to be into our head-end room. They're not there. So we'd have some one-time costs, so they really get, they lose points on that.
what's the recommendation? I mean, 1 gig,
Jeremy's
2 gig, what?
recommendation was HMU.
Excuse me?
Jeremy's was HMU.
No, but I mean,
What speed for
but
how
what
long?
1 year,
speed?
3 year,
Like
5 year.
1, 2, 5, what was?
5 gig, yeah.
We approved a $7,000 bid or a 20?
Yeah, I didn't,
There's not much difference, you shouldn't
what are we voting
Are
on?
we doing a 3-year contract, 5-year contract, 1-year contract?
It's-
My recollection is Jeremy said 3 year.
I have-
I had a hard time getting this one.
I have Jeremy's.
Because,
I wonder if we need to table this to next time, or does it have to be decided?
We can, or we don't get our E-rate funding.
But I mean, we don't
Well, then let's just do
know,
one.
I don't know what,
Yeah,
are we
so
doing,
what just-
what do we need?
I don't know what our
Because I don't know what
needs
our,
are,
I don't know what our needs are.
so I don't know
Yep,
what to
you're right.
vote.
I want to look real quick because I think I have this comparison.
Or do we just vote that we're going with HMU and then they decide to get
What's
the,
our,
If
what's
you're
our
worried
spend
about the
this year?
budget, and we need 1 gig and we vote for 5,
3
it's
year,
probably
5
not good
year.
for our budget.
And 1 gig.
Well, I can imagine we need more than one, but.
I just, I don't know,
No, but.
But then you'd have to go get, yeah, you'd go get.
they're giving more than one, and that's,
He's getting an answer for it.
Even at home, I feel like we need 5.
So it's 1 gig for 1.
my kids would,
Also, we have a second
let's see,
question.
they have second,
What was our
The things
cost
that
this
our
year
kids want.
compared, like the savings?
and a lot of those
Okay,
sites
never
are
mind.
blocked.
Okay.
So one could very well be.
Okay, thanks. But it's 1 gig for 3 years.
Okay, so this.
It's 1 gig for 3 years, and
So
the cost
this-
this year was, I think, I want to say, doing this off the top of my head, was either, it was 9.
7,200.
It was like 995.
Was what we paid previous budget, you're saying.
A month,
And
a month.
per entity, what's that? Oh, that's just means for the school district.
So.
is that inadequate for realistic use?
Is that-
Has that been adequate? No, I mean, are the kids getting
Jeremy
access?
would
to
not
it?
recommend it, I'm sure, if it was not.
Because that's a gig, not a meg, like, because, you know, a lot of times we'll get 5 meg, you know, like when you're talking at home.
Oh.
That's not a
I see.
gig, it's a
Yeah,
meg,
That's, you're right.
you know, so this is,
Okay,
okay,
and
well,
then the second, there's second question to that, though, why the 3 year instead of 5?
He just feels like the continuity.
even just in
Well,
case,
I
so
think
then we
things
go back
change,
out
and
to
I think
rebid at
prices can
3.
change too.
Yeah,
I
so we
wouldn't-
could
I
go,
wouldn't recommend a 5 either.
so then we can go back out to bid at 3 if
I
needed.
just want a clarification, I don't think I would want to sign a 5-year, but
There's
So
nothing
he's
in the world that would make
recommending
me think that's gonna go down, but
Well,
that's the problem. with that.
7,200.
That's why I-
7,200, 1 gig, yep.
You said last year it was 9 something?
I want to say 995 or 1,095.
Just,
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to support this, and I assume we can always amend it if necessary, but my assumption is with AI and things, we're gonna see the demand go up quite a bit in the next 3 years. And
We may-
I'm assuming that that means prices are gonna, because all these utilities are gonna have to upgrade equipment and do all kinds of things to continue to provide for increased support, so.
Are you wanting to go 5? Is that what you're locking in?
I'm
for
not
5?
afraid of 5, but, yeah, I'm assuming we could always upgrade the speed of the service if that was necessary.
Yeah.
for more money.
Well, sure.
But I think what this contract means is if we choose 1 gig, we get the 5-year at 7,200. If we choose 2 gigs, I mean, I don't know that we could be, that's something that we need to talk to them about, but if we choose to go up to 2 gigs next year, do we still get the 11,300,
We
you know?
try it, definitely.
I
Right.
guess they rebid it.
But you're talking more in terms of we lock our pricing for 5 years.
But we just need to pass this so that we can get our E-rate for this year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so-
And when I mean we have to pass it tonight,
We have to-
I have to email it in.
Okay.
We gotta get.
But we can still change our, to a 5-year if we wanted to, like at next maybe.
We could probably very easily file an addendum to this contract very easily.
Okay.
I think Jeremy felt like the gig was adequate
Okay.
at this point in time. He also said you can go up, it's really hard to go down. They're gonna be more, they're gonna provide, they're gonna be more acceptable to go up than they are and say, oh, well, no, we don't need
We
that.
don't need that, okay.
He said he thought 5 years was a little too long, but he says he would really like to have it, because otherwise we're coming back every year.
Okay.
Move to approve the 3-year contract for 1 gig service provided by H&E.
Can I get a second?
Do second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we can email them tonight.
I'd like to go on the record as saying this was the most boring set of policy reviews that I have been a part of in 4 years.
But it was short.
Short, yes.
So,
Not even a typo. Good job.
yeah, I told you, there wasn't anything
I
really
didn't think
typo,
so.
was there?
No. Nothing changed, did it?
Yeah.
There was no,
Yeah, that's, so, policy review scheduled first reading is no changes. I didn't notice. Yeah, there was nothing exciting about this one.
it just lists out what it means to have those certificates. That's all. So I make a motion to pass policy review first reading.
I guess. All in favor?
Aye. Jaden.
Say no.
Opposed?
No? Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. And policy review scheduled second reading.
Everything we talked about last month. We clarified what FMLA, how that worked with contracts and everything, so I'll make a motion to approve policy review second reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's see where Jim goes on this one. Approval to rescind board policy second reading. And this is just rescinding the redundant policy.
Yes.
Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Honestly.
notes. Keep you on my toes.
Is that you?
Roger and then.
All right, next up is consent agenda.
Does anybody want to see anything
Question with,
there?
They were scanned in sideways, which made it difficult to look
Oh.
at on my phone, but.
I'm so
It's
sorry.
okay.
on a computer, they were easy to do.
Oh.
Hard to spin. Yeah.
It took me a hot minute to, because every time you try to turn it, then
You
it
know what?
flips it.
I'm
Yeah, you gotta turn off your auto rotate.
Oh, I
I've
didn't
been
even know
there.
that was a
I'll
thing.
enter them correctly. I'm so sorry, guys.
No, it's fine.
It's just it.
I'm not saying it's
Yeah,
not.
it's only Jay.
I understand. I hate myself most days too, if that helps. Okay, thank you. I had no questions, I was just saying it was hard to look at.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Does that include all the financials?
Yeah.
I just have, I got one or two questions.
Do we have to vote that down?
One question
No,
I
technically,
had,
we need a second before we can discuss it.
Oh, okay.
the one question on the tuition.
Reimbursement.
Yeah.
No, outgoing to
Yeah.
Clark, was it Clark School District?
That was still the largest second one.
And then there was one to Shenandoah.
Shenandoah, I can tell you that they have online program called
Ignite. It's called.
Ignite, and we've had 2 or 3, 4 kids that went out to that.
Okay. And then the other one, I thought it was Clark.
Clayton Ridge.
What?
Clayton Ridge.
Yes.
Clayton
Clayton
Ridge
Ridge.
is another online.
Okay, so I was gonna, because I looked them up, they're over by Davenport or something.
Yeah.
So they're
Clayton Ridge is
considered
in-
online.
Clayton
So
Ridge is in
you can
Gutenberg.
still open enroll to an online school any time of the year, not just March 1st. So what sometimes happens is if
Okay.
students aren't attending here and we are going forth with the attendance policies, parents might choose to open enroll to another district.
Do we still have to monitor it?
Not when they're open enrolled out. They aren't considered part of our district any longer. So
No.
technically, the online school should, yeah.
I will now second your motion.
Okay, I'm sorry, so you first and you seconded?
Yep.
Sorry. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Where are we at?
Closed session?
Closed session.
Can you